Hey guys, this is part 3 of this spontaneous little mini series that the Lord has been leading me in. And the first one was about how we need to redefine sin in the New Testament. The second one, it was about our eternal security. And this one, I've entitled The Vertigo of Grace, Why Unconditional Love Terrifies Us. You see, when we talk about faith, security, and how we live that out in our lives, we have the tendency to spend a lot of time arguing over theology. We look at texts, we throw out rebuttals, and we try to build a ironclad logical case. But if you step back and you look at the human element behind the debates, you'll find something very fascinating. And it is that it isn't always a theological disagreement. A lot of the times, it's a psychological struggle. You see, folks, we are deeply and fundamentally terrified at the very freedom we claim we want. Human beings love checklists. We're wired to prefer rules because rules act as an artificial safety harness. Why? Because a checklist gives us a sense of control. You see, if I have a strict list of do's and don'ts, I can look at my performance and at the end of the day say, yeah, I did pretty well, and I feel secure. Or I could, if I didn't do so well, I did a little poorly, I could say, well, I know exactly what I need to fix tomorrow. That keeps us, you could say, in the driver's seat. But true freedom, absolute trust, that feels like standing at the edge of a massive canyon without a guardrail. It gives you vertigo. People will almost always choose the predictability of a cage over the vast openness of the sky they cannot control. Because of that vertigo, we build cages out of rules, and then we dress it up to make it look like holiness, and we call it discipline. But if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of the time, it's just fear, wearing a mask of piety. It is a psychological defense mechanism against the vulnerability of being loved unconditionally. Think about it. Think about the sheer anxiety that dominates a lot of the religious culture. There is this persistent fear that if we tell people they are completely safe, their eternity is secure, everybody goes crazy over that. People immediately object. Well, if people believe that, they'll just sin all they want. But that objection actually exposes the very problem we're talking about today. It assumes that the only thing that keeps us from burning up our lives to the ground is the fear of punishment. It proves that we still treat God like he's some corporate boss auditing our performance, rather than a father finishing a masterpiece. Now, to the human ego, letting go of the performance trap feels like total chaos. If our security depends on our grip, we're still trapped in the cycle of constant anxiety. But if our salvation adds exactly 0% of our own merit to the equation, then we lose bragging rights. You can no longer credit your standing to yourself. And to the control freak, well, that's hard to digest. So what's the alternative? If we put down the checklist, what keeps us from falling? Well, check this out. Our true safety harness isn't our ability to perform. It is in our willingness to trust. Look at the language of the New Testament. Philippians 1:6 says, "He who began a good work in you will carry it to completion." Notice where the pressure is. It doesn't say you have to micromanage the miracle. The pressure moves entirely from your grip to God's grip on you. Think about a toddler walking through a dangerous crowded parking lot. They are safe not because their tiny hands are holding tightly to their parents, but because their parents have wrapped their massive unbreakable grip around their wrist. Now the toddler, he'll pull and he'll twist and he'll get distracted. But you know what? The little toddler isn't going anywhere. When you actually accept that harness, the entire dynamic changes. True freedom doesn't produce lawlessness, folks. It produces love. When you realize you are completely secure, you stop serving God out of a desperate attempt to stay out of hell, and you start serving him out of the sheer gratitude for what he has done for you and continues to do. You don't avoid messing up because you're afraid of being thrown out. You avoid it because you love the one who is holding on to you and you don't want to break his heart. You finally have the room to stop pretending, to step out of the cage and be the honest, messy work in progress. Imagine a rock climber hanging on the sheer cliffside. They aren't safe because they have iron fingers that they never become fatigued. No, they are safe because they are tied into a tight, tense rope and an anchor that's bolted deep into the granite. Legalism is trying to white knuckle the rock with your own bare strength until your fingers give out. Grace is trusting the rope that has already caught you. As 1 John 4:18 wrote, there is no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. I've learned that it takes a spiritual maturity to look at our religious anxiety and realize it is actually a trust issue. We try to write out our terms and conditions into a blank check of grace because we are terrified of what happens if we let go of the steering wheel. True security isn't a high fence built to keep you from escaping. It is an anchor that holds you steady so that you finally have the courage to step out, explore, and live in the vast openness of his love. So the question that I want to leave you with is simple. Are you ready to stop managing your checklist? Step out of the cage and finally trust the work that your Father has started within you?